Maya's hands shook as she sealed the envelope.
Help me. Richard Donovan is selling me to Victor Volkov. New Year's Eve. I have 48 hours.
She taped it to the silver balloon, her only chance before the security cameras reset. The helium tugged against her grip as footsteps echoed in the parking garage. Richard's voice cut through the cold December air. "Maya, get back to the car, now!" She released it. The balloon rose 15 feet before snagging on electrical wires, tangled and motionless. Maya's breath caught. Then she saw him. A man in leather, climbing off a Harley, staring directly at the stuck balloon, then at her bruised wrist. Subscribe now and follow this story to the end. Comment what city you're watching from, so I can see how far this journey goes. Ghost Williams had seen a lot in 52 years. Combat tours in Iraq, 16 years riding with the Hells Angels, consulting work with the FBI's trafficking task force. But he'd never seen a girl release a balloon in a rest stop parking garage like her life depended on it. He'd pulled off I-85 outside Charlotte for gas, nothing more. December 29th, 4:47 p.m., 2 days before New Year's Eve. The cold was biting, the kind that made your fingers stiff even inside riding gloves. He'd just finished filling his tank when he heard it. A man's voice, sharp, controlling. The kind of tone that made Ghost's instincts flare. "Maya, get back to the car, now!" Ghost looked up. 50 feet away, near a black Mercedes SUV, a young woman stood frozen. 19, maybe 20. Dark hair pulled back too tight. Clothes expensive, but wrong somehow. A cashmere coat that looked like it belonged to someone else. Designer bag clutched against her chest like a shield. Her face was pale, eyes wide with something Ghost recognized instantly. Fear. And 20 feet above her, tangled in electrical wires running between light poles, was a silver balloon with a white envelope taped to its string. The man who'd called to her stepped out of the Mercedes, late 40s, well-dressed, everything about him calculated. Charcoal suit, silk tie, watch that probably cost more than Ghost's bike. But his hand on the girl's elbow was too tight, his smile too controlled. "I said now, Maya. We're late." "I just wanted some air," the girl said. Her voice was quiet, practiced. "The drive was long." "We've discussed this. You don't wander off without telling me." Ghost watched the exchange, every tactical instinct he'd honed in the Marine Corps and sharpened through years of trafficking investigations, screaming at him. The body language was wrong. The girl's shoulders were hunched, defensive. The man's posture was possessive, controlling. And that balloon. That stuck balloon with its white envelope. Ghost made a decision. He walked toward them, keys still in his hand, moving casual but purposeful. The man noticed him immediately. Guys like that always clocked potential threats, and his expression shifted. Wariness mixed with disdain. Biker, leather cut, Hells Angels patches visible even under Ghost's riding jacket. "Afternoon," Ghost said, stopping 10 feet away. Non-threatening distance. "Couldn't help but notice you folks having some trouble." "No trouble." The man's voice was cold, dismissive. "Private conversation." Ghost looked at the girl. Her eyes met his for half a second, and he saw it. A flash of something desperate, pleading. Then she looked down. "Right," Ghost said slowly. "Just thought I'd ask. Looked like maybe your daughter dropped something." He pointed up at the balloon. "Stepdaughter," the man corrected. "And it's handled. Thank you." "Sure looked upset about that balloon," Ghost pressed. He wasn't leaving, not yet. "Happy to climb up there and get it if you need. Used to do high wire work in the Corps." Maya's head snapped up. Hope flashed across her face, followed immediately by panic as Richard's grip on her elbow tightened visibly. "That's unnecessary," Richard said. His voice dropped an octave, territorial. "Maya's fine. Aren't you, sweetheart?" The silence stretched too long.
I'm fine,
Maya whispered, but her eyes screamed the opposite. Richard smiled, all teeth, no warmth. See, everything's fine. Now, if you'll excuse us—
What's in the envelope?
Ghost asked. Richard's smile faltered. Excuse me?
The one taped to the balloon.
Ghost gestured upward.
Just curious. Seems important if she's this upset about losing it.
A childhood memento, Richard said smoothly. Her mother passed recently. She's been sentimental. Grief does strange things. Maya's face went white. Ghost's jaw tightened. He'd heard variations of this script before. Traffickers loved invoking dead relatives, mental illness, anything to explain away a victim's distress. My condolences, he said, never taking his eyes off Maya. Losing a parent is hard. Yes, well— Richard started moving Maya toward the SUV. We really must go. Wedding preparations, you understand.
Wedding?
Ghost's voice sharpened. New Year's Eve, Richard said proudly, his hand now fully around Maya's arm. Maya's marrying a wonderful man, very successful, international businessman. Maya's breathing quickened. Ghost saw her chest rise and fall too fast, saw her free hand clench into a fist. Congratulations, Ghost said. But he was watching Maya's reaction, watching the way she'd gone rigid, the way her eyes were darting toward the exit like she was calculating escape routes.
Thank you.
Richard opened the Mercedes passenger door. Maya, get in. She hesitated. 1 second, maybe 2. Her eyes found Ghost's again, and this time the message was unmistakable. Help me. Then Richard pushed her, gently enough that anyone not paying attention would miss it. But Ghost saw. Maya stumbled slightly, caught herself, and climbed into the SUV. Richard walked around to the driver's side. Safe travels, he said to Ghost, dismissing him entirely. The Mercedes pulled away. Ghost stood there, watching the taillights disappear onto the highway, every instinct telling him something was catastrophically wrong. He looked up at the balloon. The envelope swayed in the cold wind, still tangled in the electrical wires 15 feet up. Ghost walked back to his bike, grabbed a small toolkit from his saddlebag, and approached the light pole. The wires weren't live, he checked first, and the climb was easier than he'd implied. 90 seconds later, he was back on the ground with the balloon in hand. The envelope was sealed. No name, no address. Just one word written in desperate, shaky handwriting. Help. Ghost's hands were steady as he opened it. 28 years of seeing terrible things had taught him control. But when he unfolded the letter inside, his breath caught. To whoever finds this, my name is Maya Catherine Carter. I'm 19 years old. 6 months ago, my mother died in what was ruled a car accident. I don't think it was an accident. Her husband, my stepfather, Richard Donovan, became my legal guardian. He controls everything. My phone, my money, my mother's inheritance, my life. 2 weeks ago, I found documents in his office, wire transfers, emails, photographs of me. He's selling me to a man named Viktor Volkov for $150,000. They're calling it a marriage. It's scheduled for New Year's Eve at a private estate outside Charlotte. But I've researched Viktor Volkov. He's connected to trafficking networks in Eastern Europe. Girls who marry him disappear. Richard monitors everything. I can't call police. He has lawyers who've already planted evidence that I'm mentally unstable from grief. I tried telling my college advisor, but Richard had me withdrawn from school for medical reasons. I tried running twice. He found me both times. He has connections everywhere. I'm writing this because I'm out of options. In 48 hours, Viktor Volkov is taking me out of the country. Richard says it's a honeymoon. I know I'll never come back. If you're reading this, please help me. Please believe me. I'm being held at 2847 Brookwood Estate Drive, Charlotte. There are cameras everywhere, guards. I can't escape alone. My mother's name was Catherine Marie Carter. She was a nurse. She loved helping people. If she were alive, she'd fight for me. But she's gone. So I'm begging you, whoever you are, please be the person who fights for me now. Please don't let them take me. Maya Carter. December 29th, 2019. Ghost read it twice. Then he pulled out his phone and took photos of every page, every word, the envelope, the handwriting. Evidence, documentation, chain of custody. Then he made the first call. Lawman, it's Ghost. I need a full background run on 2 names. Richard Donovan, real estate developer, Charlotte area, and Victor Volkov, international businessman, possibly Eastern European. I need it in 30 minutes. What's this about? Lawman Patterson's voice was alert, professional. Cop instincts never fully retired. Trafficking, possible forced marriage setup. I've got a letter from the Vic, 19-year-old girl. Sale is scheduled for New Year's Eve. Silence on the other end. Then, send me everything. I'll have it in 20. Second call, FBI. Agent Blake, Ghost Williams. I've got a situation. Jennifer Blake had worked with Ghost before. 3 joint operations, all successful. She trusted his judgment. Talk to me. 19-year-old trafficking victim. Forced marriage scenario. Buyer has diplomatic connections, possibly immunity issues. Sale happens New Year's Eve. I've got a written plea from the victim, documentation of control tactics, and a 36-hour window. Where are you? I-85 rest stop, mile marker 67. Just intercepted communication from the victim. She's currently being transported to an estate in Charlotte by her stepfather, who's orchestrating the sale. Blake's voice shifted to command mode. Send me everything immediately. I'm calling the task force. Ghost, do not approach the estate. Do not spook the suspect. If he runs with her, we lose everything. Understood. But Blake, I saw this girl's face. We're running out of time. Then we work fast. Send the letter. I'll have warrants started within the hour. Ghost texted the photos, then stood in the parking garage, staring at the silver balloon in his hand. 48 hours. New Year's Eve was in 2 days. He made the third call. Tiny, I need a full mobilization. Every chapter within 300 miles. We're stopping a trafficking operation, and I need an army. Robert Tiny Hayes, president of the Hells Angels Asheville chapter, didn't hesitate. When and where? Details incoming. But Tiny, this one's different. Victim's 19, educated, being sold under the guise of marriage. Buyer's got diplomatic protection. We're going up against serious money and serious connections. How serious? The kind that makes people disappear, Ghost said quietly. The kind that's done this before. Then we make sure they don't do it again. I'll start making calls. How many do you need? Ghost thought about the letter, about Maya's desperate eyes, about the estate Richard had mentioned, the guards, the cameras, about Victor Volkov and whatever network he represented. 300, Ghost said. I want 300 brothers surrounding that estate when we move. I want it airtight. You'll have them. When? New Year's Eve. Details to follow. This stays quiet until I give the word. Understood. Ghost, you got a good feeling about this one? Ghost looked at the letter again, at Maya's handwriting, the desperation visible in every shaky word.
I've got a 19-year-old girl who wrote a letter to strangers begging for angels, Ghost said.
We're those angels. We don't have a choice. He hung up and stood there for a moment, letting the weight of it settle. This wasn't going to be simple. Richard Donovan had money, lawyers, connections. Viktor Volkov had diplomatic complications. The estate would be fortified. The timeline was impossibly tight. But Ghost had been in worse situations. Fallujah, 2004. Helmand Province, 2006. A trafficking ring in Atlanta, 2015, where they'd extracted 4 victims from a fortified compound with 0 casualties. This was what he did. What they all did. His phone buzzed. Text from Lawman. Got preliminary intel. Calling you now. Ghost answered. What'd you find? Richard Donovan, age 47, real estate developer, worth approximately $12 million on paper. But here's where it gets interesting. I pulled his financial records through some old law enforcement access. He's had 3 stepdaughters in the past 8 years. Ghost's grip tightened on the phone. 3? Caroline Brennan, 2011, married a Romanian businessman named Anton Petrescu when she was 21. Last known location, Bucharest. No contact with family since the wedding. Jessica Torres, 2014, married a Ukrainian diplomat named Alexei Kovalenko at age 22, relocated to Kiev. Also no family contact. And Samantha Chen, 2017, married a Russian investor named Dmitry Sokolov at 23, moved to Moscow. Again, no contact. Ghost closed his eyes. He's done this before. Multiple times. Gets worse. All 3 marriages happened within months of the mother's death, and in each case, Richard was named guardian and had control of the daughter's inheritance. Caroline's mother died in a home invasion gone wrong. Jessica's mother had a fatal allergic reaction to medication. Samantha's mother drowned in a boating accident. Jesus Christ! I can't prove the deaths weren't accidental, Lawman said carefully. But the pattern is there. Marry a woman with assets and a daughter. Wait until the timing's right. Mother dies. Richard gets guardianship and control of money. Daughter gets sold to an Eastern European buyer disguised as marriage. Richard keeps the inheritance. What about Maya's mother, Catherine Carter? Died 6 months ago. Single-car accident on a rural highway. She hit a tree at high speed. Police report says she likely fell asleep at the wheel. But Ghost, her blood alcohol was 0. No drugs, no medical conditions. She was a nurse, healthy, careful. And the accident happened 2 weeks after she changed her will to leave everything to Maya in a trust that Richard couldn't touch. Ghost felt cold fury building in his chest. He killed her. Can't prove it, but yeah, I think he did. What about Viktor Volkov? That's where it gets complicated. Viktor Volkov, age 52, Ukrainian national, officially listed as an international investment consultant, has diplomatic credentials through some kind of trade representative status, which means immunity. Ghost finished. Partial immunity. He can be arrested for serious felonies on U.S. soil, but prosecution is difficult. And he's got connections. State Department, foreign embassies, high-level attorneys. He's not some street-level trafficker we can just grab. But he is a trafficker. Interpol has a file on him 3 inches thick. Suspected involvement in trafficking networks across Eastern Europe. Girls from poor families who get promised jobs or marriages and end up in brothels. But he's never been formally charged. His diplomatic status protects him. Ghost was quiet for a moment, processing. So we've got a serial killer selling his stepdaughter to a protected trafficker, and we have 36 hours to stop it. That's about the size of it. Then we better get moving. Ghost hung up and immediately called Agent Blake back. Blake, I've got your motive. Richard Donovan has done this at least 3 times before. 3 previous stepdaughters, all married to Eastern European nationals, all disappeared.
And I've got reason to believe he murdered Maya's mother to get control of her inheritance.
Blake swore softly. Send me lawman's intel. I'm bringing in the task force now. But Ghost, listen to me carefully. Viktor Volkov's diplomatic status is going to complicate everything. We can arrest him for trafficking, but we need ironclad evidence. We need the transaction documented. We need Viktor caught in the act.
What are you saying?
I'm saying we might need to let the wedding happen.
Let Viktor show up. Let Richard make the exchange. Then we move.
Absolutely not. Ghost's voice was flat. I'm not using a 19-year-old girl as bait. I'm not asking you to. But we need Viktor there, Ghost. If we grab Richard early and Viktor doesn't show, he disappears back to Europe and we lose any chance at the network. We need them both. Ghost looked at the letter again.
Please don't let them take me.
How close can we cut it? He asked.
We stage everything. Full surveillance on the estate. Tactical team ready to breach. The second Viktor produces payment or attempts to leave with Maya, we move. She never leaves the property. She never gets in his car. But we need him to commit the crime on U.S. soil.
And if something goes wrong? If they move up the timeline? If Viktor tries to take her early?
Then we adapt. But Ghost, this is the only way we get them both. And if we don't get Viktor, he'll just buy another girl next month. Ghost hated it, hated every part of it. But she was right. Fine, but I want eyes on Maya every second. I want to know she's breathing. And at the first sign of real danger, we go in. I don't care about Viktor's immunity or building the perfect case. That girl stays safe. Agreed. I'm sending a surveillance team to the estate within the hour. Unmarked van, long-range equipment. They'll have visual on all entry points. And I'm bringing my people.
The club?
300 riders. They'll stage outside the estate perimeter. When you give the go signal, we lock down every exit. Nobody gets out.
Blake was quiet for a moment. You trust them to hold discipline? No cowboy moves?
These aren't cowboys, Blake. They're Marines, cops, veterans, and they're all fathers, brothers, sons who've seen what trafficking does. They'll follow orders.
All right. Coordinate with my tactical lead. His name's Marcus Chen. I'll send you his number.
Ghost felt the pieces starting to align.
What about Richard's lawyers? Maya said he's built a case that she's mentally unstable.
I've got a psychiatrist on the task force, Dr. Sarah Mitchell. She'll evaluate Maya once we extract her, provide expert testimony that she's competent and credible. We'll dismantle Richard's narrative before it starts.
Good. What else do you need from me?
The letter, original copy, chain of custody documentation, and Ghost, I need you to be ready to testify. Everything you saw today, every detail.
Done. I'm keeping the original secure, sending you copies now.
He took more photos, then carefully placed the letter in a plastic evidence bag from his bike's storage. Every detail mattered. Every procedure followed. His phone buzzed. Text from Tiny. Charlotte chapter confirmed. 71 riders. Raleigh sending 58. Wilmington 43. Atlanta 81. Asheville 47. Total 300. What's the target? Ghost texted back the address. 2847 Brookwood Estate Drive, New Year's Eve. Timing TBD. Full tactical briefing tomorrow. This is a federal operation. We're support only. Discipline is mandatory. Tiny's response was immediate. Understood. Brothers are asking what this is about. 19-year-old trafficking victim. Forced marriage to diplomatic trafficker. Pattern of previous victims. This one doesn't disappear. Say no more. We're in. Ghost stood in the parking garage, darkness falling around him, and felt the operation taking shape.
FBI task force mobilizing, 300 Hells Angels coordinating, surveillance being established, warrants being drafted. But at the center of it all was Maya, 19 years old, trapped in an estate with a man who'd probably killed her mother, waiting for a monster to arrive and take her away forever. 46 hours until New Year's Eve. Ghost looked up at the electrical wires where the balloon had been stuck, where Maya had released her last, desperate hope. "We're coming," he thought. "Just hold on." Then he climbed on his Harley and headed toward Charlotte, toward Brookwood Estate, toward surveillance positions and tactical planning, and the delicate, dangerous work of building a case strong enough to destroy Richard Donovan and Victor Volkov forever. The engine roared to life. The December cold bit at his face as he accelerated onto I-85. Behind him, the rest stop faded into darkness. Ahead, a 19-year-old girl waited for angels. And Ghost Williams had never failed a mission yet. Maya heard the lock click at 11:47 p.m., 3 hours after Richard had brought her back to the estate. 3 hours of sitting in her bedroom, prisoner's quarters really, staring at her phone. The phone Richard had returned to her that afternoon with a smile that made her skin crawl. "You'll need it for wedding photos," he'd said. "Victor wants documentation of his beautiful bride." But Maya knew better. The phone was monitored. Every text, every call, every search logged and reviewed. She'd learned that lesson 4 months ago when she'd tried contacting her college roommate. Richard had known within minutes. Now she turned it over in her hands, thinking about the balloon, about the letter, about the stranger in leather who'd watched her with eyes that actually saw. She didn't know if he'd found the letter, didn't know if he'd even tried, but it was the only move she'd had left. The door opened. Richard stood there, still in his suit despite the late hour. He never looked tired, never looked anything except perfectly controlled. "We need to talk," he said. Maya's stomach dropped. He knew. Somehow he knew about the letter. About what? She kept her voice steady, a skill she'd developed over 6 months of survival. Victor called. He's arriving tomorrow instead of New Year's Eve. Change of plans. Richard walked into the room, closing the door behind him. Something about weather complications with the flight. He wants the ceremony moved up. Maya's hands went cold. Tomorrow. That gave her less than 12 hours. "I thought we had 2 more days," she managed. "Plans change. You'll adapt." Richard sat in the chair across from her bed, studying her. "You've been quiet tonight. Quieter than usual." "I'm tired." "Are you?" He leaned forward. "Or are you planning something?" Maya's heart hammered, but she held his gaze. 6 months had taught her that showing fear only made things worse. "Planning what? You control everything. My phone, my money, the doors, the cameras. What exactly could I plan?" Richard smiled. "That's what I appreciate about you, Maya. You're smart enough to recognize reality. Your mother raised you well." The mention of her mother sent rage through Maya's chest, but she swallowed it. "Don't talk about her." "Why not? Catherine was a remarkable woman. Beautiful, intelligent, resourceful. She would have been proud to see you married to someone of Victor's caliber. She would have killed you if she knew what you're doing." Richard's smile didn't falter. "Your mother was weak. She let emotions cloud her judgment. You're stronger. You'll survive this because you understand that fighting is pointless." Maya wanted to scream that she'd already fought, that she'd written a letter and released it and prayed someone would find it. But she kept her face neutral. "What time tomorrow?" 7 p.m. Victor's landing at a private airfield at noon. We'll have final preparations in the afternoon. The ceremony will be small. Just Victor's associates, my attorney, and the officiant. An officiant who's being paid to forge documents. An officiant who understands that international marriages require flexibility. Richard stood. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's an important day. He walked to the door, then paused. Oh, and Maya? The cameras in your room recorded you releasing that balloon this afternoon. Quite dramatic. Did you really think a piece of paper tied to helium would save you? Maya's blood turned to ice. Richard's smile widened. No one's coming. No one cares. You're alone. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be. He left. The lock clicked again. Maya sat frozen, her mind racing. He knew about the letter, which meant he might have retrieved it, might have destroyed it, which meant the stranger in leather had nothing. No proof, no evidence, no reason to believe her story. She was alone. Maya walked to the window. The estate grounds stretched out below, security lights illuminating manicured lawns and iron fencing. 2 guards patrolled the perimeter. Richard had hired them a week ago, calling them wedding security, but Maya knew what they really were. Jailers. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. Maya's hands shook as she opened it. Don't respond. Don't react. They're monitoring your phone. My name is Ghost. I found your letter. Help is coming. Hang on until tomorrow night. We're getting you out. Maya read it 3 times, her heart pounding so hard she thought Richard's cameras might pick it up. Ghost. The stranger from the rest stop. He'd found the letter. He was coming. But Richard had just moved up the timeline. Victor was arriving tomorrow. The ceremony was tomorrow evening. She wanted to text back, wanted to warn him, but the message had been clear. Don't respond. They're monitoring. So Maya did the only thing she could. She walked to her bathroom, turned on the shower to create noise cover, and stood there trying to control her breathing while hope and terror fought for dominance in her chest. Someone was coming. But would they arrive in time? 40 miles away, Ghost sat in an unmarked surveillance van with Agent Blake and her tactical team. They'd set up position at 8 p.m. in a commercial parking lot with direct line of sight to Brookwood Estate. High-powered cameras, thermal imaging, communications equipment that cost more than most people's houses. Blake hung up her phone, her expression grim. We've got a problem. What? Ghost was watching the estate feed, counting guards, mapping entry points. My contact at State just called. Victor Volkov's flight plan changed. He's landing tomorrow at noon instead of New Year's Eve. The ceremony's been moved up. Ghost's jaw clenched. How much time do we have? 19 hours, maybe less. He's landing at Executive Air, private terminal. We'll have surveillance on the airfield, but once he reaches the estate, the window closes fast. Can we grab him at the airport? Not without tipping off Richard. If Victor gets spooked, he disappears and we lose everything. We need him at the estate, caught in the act. Ghost stared at the monitor showing Maya's bedroom window. The lights were still on. She's got 19 hours. That's not enough time. It's the time we have. Blake pulled up schematics of the estate. Here's what we know. The property is 12 acres, fully fenced. 2 armed guards on perimeter patrol, rotating shifts every 6 hours. Security cameras on all entry points. Main house has 22 rooms. Maya's being held on the 2nd floor, northeast corner. How many people inside? Richard, Maya, and a housekeeper named Elena Marquez. Elena's been with Richard for 3 years. We're running background on her now, but preliminary check shows she's likely complicit. She's been present during all 3 previous stepdaughters. Ghost felt his anger rising. So she's watched this happen before. Looks that way. We'll charge her as an accessory when we move. What about the guards? Who are they? Blake switched monitors, pulling up personnel files. Private security firm called Sentinel Protection. The firm's legitimate, but these 2 particular guards have interesting histories. Former military, dishonorable discharges, both currently under investigation for assault charges that mysteriously disappeared. Richard pays them well to look the other way. They armed? Sidearms only as far as we can tell, but we have to assume they'll resist if we breach. Ghost studied the layout, his tactical mind working through scenarios. What's your entry plan? We wait until Victor arrives and the ceremony begins. I've got a team of 12, 6 entry, 6 perimeter. We breach simultaneously from front and rear while the ceremony's in progress. Secure Richard and Victor before they can react. Extract Maya to safety. And if they've got more firepower inside than we know about? If Victor brought his own security? Blake met his eyes. That's why I need your 300 brothers positioned outside the fence. If this goes sideways, if we need backup, or if anyone tries to run, you contain the situation. Nobody leaves that property. Ghost nodded slowly. When do we stage? Tomorrow, 4 p.m. Victor lands at noon, reaches the estate around 1 p.m. based on drive time. That gives us 3 hours to get everyone in position before the 7 p.m. ceremony. I'll coordinate with Tiny. We'll have riders surrounding the entire perimeter. Quiet approach, no visible presence until you give the signal. Then we lock it down. Good. Blake pulled up another file. I've also got information on the previous victims, Caroline, Jessica, and Samantha. We tracked them down. Ghost's attention sharpened. They're alive? 2 of them. Caroline Brennan died in Bucharest in 2013. Official cause was a drug overdose, but the coroner's report noted injuries consistent with sustained abuse. She was 23. Ghost closed his eyes briefly. The other 2? Jessica Torres is in Kiev, working as a translator. She escaped her situation in 2016, but she's terrified to testify. Alexei Kovalenko has connections to organized crime. She thinks if she talks, she's dead. And Samantha Chen? Moscow. Still married to Dmitry Sokolov on paper, but living in a women's shelter. She reached out to the U.S. Embassy twice asking for help, but couldn't provide enough evidence to warrant intervention. She's willing to testify if we can guarantee protection. Can you? Witness Protection Program, new identity, relocation. Yes. If she testifies against Richard, it corroborates the pattern, makes it impossible for him to claim Maya's situation is isolated. Ghost felt a grim satisfaction. So we've got him. Pattern of behavior, witness testimony, documentation. Richard goes down. If we execute this perfectly. But Ghost... Blake's voice turned serious. Viktor Volkov is the bigger fish. He's been doing this for 20 years across multiple countries. If we can flip him, get him to cooperate, we could dismantle an entire network, hundreds of victims. You think he'll flip? I think he'll do whatever keeps him out of a U.S. federal prison. And with his diplomatic complications, prosecutors might deal. 20 years in a federal facility versus life? He'll talk. Ghost didn't like it, the idea of Volkov getting any kind of deal. But if it saved other girls, other Mayas, fine. But Maya's the priority. Everything else is secondary. Agreed. Blake's phone buzzed. She checked it, frowned. Damn it. What? Lawman just sent updated intel. Richard's attorney filed paperwork this afternoon declaring Maya mentally incompetent. He's got a psychiatrist, Dr. Andrew Morton, who's prepared to testify that she's delusional, suffering from grief-induced psychosis, and that her claims of coercion are fabrications. Let me guess. Dr. Morton's being paid. $50,000 deposited into his account last week. We're already moving to have his medical license suspended, but the paperwork exists. Richard's building a defense before we've even arrested him. Ghost slammed his hand against the van wall. This bastard thinks of everything. Which is why we need to be smarter. I've got Dr. Sarah Mitchell ready to evaluate Maya the moment we extract her. Full psychiatric assessment, documentation that she's competent and credible. We'll have competing expert testimony, and ours will be legitimate. Ghost forced himself to breathe, to think tactically. What else do we know about tomorrow's ceremony? Who's officiating? Blake pulled up another file. Minister named Reverend Thomas Caldwell. He's performed ceremonies for all 3 previous stepdaughters. He's not a real minister, bought his credentials online, but he produces documents that look legitimate enough for Richard's purposes. So, another conspirator. Another charge. We'll arrest him along with Richard, Victor, Elena, and the guards. Clean sweep. Ghost looked at the monitor again. Maya's light had gone off. She was trying to sleep alone in that room, knowing Victor was coming 12 hours earlier than planned. He thought about the text he'd sent her, the risk he'd taken using a burner phone and a spoofed number to get through Richard's monitoring system. The message had been delivered. Blake's tech team had confirmed it, but they had no way of knowing if Maya had seen it or believed it. She's got to be terrified, Ghost said quietly. Blake nodded. She's 19, trapped in a fortress, facing forced marriage to a monster. And she has no way of knowing if help is real or another manipulation. Yeah, she's terrified. Then we don't give Richard or Victor a single extra second. The moment that ceremony starts, we move. Agreed. I'm sending the final operational plan to all teams in 1 hour. Your brothers need to be briefed on strict rules of engagement. No heroics, no vigilante justice. This is a federal operation, and everyone follows protocol.
They will. These aren't amateurs, Blake. They're disciplined.
I know. I've worked with them before. But emotion runs high on these cases. I need your word that if someone on your team sees Victor and wants revenge, they'll hold position. Ghost met her eyes. You have my word. But Blake, if something goes wrong, if the extraction fails, if Maya's in immediate danger and your team can't reach her, I'm going in, protocol or not. Blake studied him for a long moment. Fair enough, because if it were my daughter, I'd do the same. They worked through the night, refining plans, coordinating teams, preparing for every contingency. At 3 a.m., Ghost finally left the surveillance van and rode to the staging area where Tiny was coordinating the brothers. The warehouse off Route 74 was packed. 300 motorcycles in perfect formation. 300 men in leather cuts, standing in groups, talking in low voices, checking equipment. When Ghost walked in, conversation stopped. Tiny stepped forward.
Brothers are ready. What's the plan?
Ghost walked to the center of the warehouse where someone had set up a portable screen. He pulled up the estate schematics and began briefing. Target is Brookwood Estate, 12 acres, fortified. Primary objective: extract Maya Carter, 19-year-old trafficking victim being sold under the guise of marriage to Viktor Volkov, Ukrainian national with diplomatic status. Secondary objective: secure Richard Donovan, the stepfather orchestrating the sale, and all conspirators. He clicked through surveillance photos. The ceremony is scheduled for 7 p.m. tomorrow. FBI tactical team breaches at 7:05 p.m. Our job is perimeter containment. We position at 4 p.m., 3 hours before ceremony start. Formation: complete circle surrounding the property, 50-foot spacing. No visible presence until FBI gives the signal. Then we lock down every exit. No one leaves, no one enters. Clear? 300 voices. Clear. Rules of engagement: observe only until FBI signals, then establish roadblocks at all access points. Anyone attempts to leave, you stop them, but you do not engage physically unless absolutely necessary. This is a federal operation. We're support, not primary action. Understood? Understood. Bear raised his hand. What if the guards start shooting? FBI Tactical has that covered. But if rounds come your direction, you take cover and you call it in. Do not return fire unless your life is in immediate danger. We have legal authority to be there, but only as auxiliary support. The moment we cross into vigilante territory, we lose everything.
and Maya doesn't get justice. Lawman spoke up. What about Victor's potential security? If he brings his own people? FBI's monitoring the airport. Any additional personnel will be flagged and tactical will adjust. But good question. Everyone stays alert for unknown actors. You see anyone leaving the estate who's not FBI or law enforcement, you report immediately. Ghost paused, looking at the assembled brothers. Men who'd left families 2 days before New Year's. Men who'd driven hours to be here. Men who understood what was at stake. I need you to understand something, he said quietly. The girl we're saving wrote a letter to strangers begging for angels. She released it on a balloon because she had no other options. She's 19 years old. Her mother's dead, probably murdered by the same man selling her. She spent 6 months in captivity, being told no one cares, no one's coming. She's alone. His voice roughened. Tomorrow, when we surround that estate, when 300 bikes roll up and establish that perimeter, she's going to know she wasn't alone. She's going to know that someone heard her, that someone cared enough to answer. The warehouse was absolutely silent. So we do this right, Ghost continued. We follow every protocol, every rule, every order. Because that girl deserves justice, not revenge. She deserves to see Richard and Victor in federal prison, not shot in the street. She deserves to rebuild her life knowing the system worked, that good people still exist. Understood?
Understood.
Tiny stepped forward.
What does she need after extraction? Medical? Counseling?
FBI's got a full support team ready. Medical evaluation, psychiatric assessment, legal advocacy. She'll be placed in protective custody until the trial, then witness protection if needed. But yeah, she's going to need people who give a damn, which is why I'm asking volunteers to rotate shifts at the safe house once she's extracted. Just presence. Just reminding her she's not alone anymore. 50 hands went up immediately. Ghost felt something tight in his chest loosen slightly. Good. I'll coordinate schedules with Agent Blake. For now, everyone gets rest. We stage at 4 p.m. tomorrow. Location coordinates will be sent at 2 p.m. Keep phones on. Stay ready. The brothers dispersed slowly, talking in small groups, checking bikes, preparing gear. Ghost stood there watching them, feeling the weight of command, the responsibility of 300 lives and one 19-year-old girl, all depending on split-second decisions tomorrow. Tiny walked over.
You good?
Yeah, just thinking.
About?
Ghost pulled out his phone, showing Tiny the photo of Maya's letter. About this. About a kid desperate enough to write to dead strangers for help. About how many times she probably asked for help before this. About how many people looked the other way. Tiny read the letter, his expression hardening.
Not anymore. Tomorrow, nobody looks away.
No. Tomorrow we make sure she knows 300 people showed up. Ghost's phone buzzed. Text from Agent Blake. Victor's plane landed early. He's en route to the estate now. Ceremony moved to 5 p.m.
We're out of time. Mobilize now.
Ghost's stomach dropped.
5 p.m.
That was in 13 hours, not 19. He showed Tiny the message.
Call everyone, Tiny said immediately. We stage at noon, not 4 p.m. 3-hour window instead of 5.
Ghost was already texting the coordinates.
Change of plans. Stage at noon. Ceremony moved to 5 p.m. This is happening now.
Across the warehouse, phones started buzzing. Brothers checked messages, faces turning serious. The relaxed atmosphere shifted instantly to combat readiness.
Mount up,
Tiny called. We've got 12 hours. Let's move. 300 engines roared to life simultaneously. The sound was deafening, purposeful, absolute. Ghost climbed on his Harley, feeling the familiar weight of his cut, the patches that meant brotherhood and protection
and promises kept. He thought about Maya in that bedroom, watching the clock tick down, not knowing that 300 riders were about to descend on Charlotte like an army. Hang on, he thought. We're coming early. The bikes rolled out in formation, 300 strong, heading toward Brookwood Estate and whatever the next 13 hours would bring. Behind them, the warehouse stood empty, waiting. Ahead, a 19-year-old girl waited for angels. And Ghost Williams had never been more certain that they'd arrive in time, even if it meant breaking every rule in the book to do it. Maya woke at 6:47 a.m. to voices downstairs. Male voices, unfamiliar, speaking in accented English. Her heart seized. Victor was here. Hours early. She'd thought she had until afternoon, had clung to that timeline like a lifeline. She crept to her bedroom door, pressing her ear against the wood. The lock was still engaged from the outside, but sound carried through the old house. The flight was smooth. Richard's voice, polished and welcoming. Efficient. The second voice was deeper, controlled. I prefer not to waste time with delays. The ceremony can proceed this afternoon, yes? Of course. Everything's prepared. Maya's upstairs. She's been looking forward to meeting you. Maya's stomach turned. Looking forward, as if she had any choice. I would like to see her now. Victor's tone made it clear this wasn't a request. She's still sleeping, perhaps after breakfast. Now! Footsteps on the stairs. Maya backed away from the door, her mind racing. She was still in pajamas, hadn't showered, hadn't prepared any kind of defense. The lock clicked. Richard opened the door. Behind him stood a man in his early 50s, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing an expensive suit that couldn't disguise the coldness in his eyes. Viktor Volkov studied her like she was property he was considering purchasing. Maya, Richard said with false warmth. This is Victor. He arrived early. Isn't that wonderful? Maya forced herself to meet Victor's gaze, refusing to look away first. 6 months of survival had taught her that showing weakness only made predators more aggressive. Hello, she said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Victor stepped into the room, and Richard moved aside to let him pass. You are younger than the photographs suggested. I'm 19. Yes, Richard mentioned. Victor circled her slowly, appraising. You have your mother's features. Catherine was a beautiful woman. The mention of her mother from this stranger's mouth made Maya's hands curl into fists. You knew my mother? I met her once, briefly, at a charity function Richard hosted. Victor's smile didn't reach his eyes. She spoke highly of you, said you were intelligent, strong-willed. I appreciate those qualities. Maya's skin crawled. I'm sure you do. Victor's expression sharpened. Richard warned me you might be difficult, that grief has made you combative. Grief didn't make me anything. Being sold like livestock did that. Richard stepped forward quickly. Maya, that's enough. Victor raised a hand, stopping him. No, let her speak. I prefer honesty to pretense. He looked at Maya. You believe you're being sold? I know I am. $150,000. I found the wire transfer records. Victor's eyebrows rose slightly. Intelligent indeed. Yes, there is a financial arrangement. Your stepfather has debts. I have resources. But this is a legitimate marriage, Maya. I'm offering you a life of comfort and security. In exchange for what? Companionship, loyalty, the duties any wife provides. Maya felt bile rise in her throat. And if I refuse? Then you remain here with Richard, penniless, with no access to your mother's inheritance, no future, no options. Is that preferable? The trap was so perfectly constructed. Marry Victor or stay trapped with Richard.
Either way, she lost.
I want access to a lawyer, Maya said. Independent counsel. Before any ceremony.
Victor laughed, a sound without humor. Spirited, I like that. But no, you will not have legal counsel.
This is a private family matter. Family? Maya's voice rose. You're not my family. You're a stranger buying a bride.
I'm your future husband, and you will learn to accept that. Victor turned to Richard. She needs preparation. Hair, makeup, appropriate clothing. The ceremony is at 5 p.m. I want her ready by 4:30.
Of course, Richard said quickly. Elena will handle everything.
Good. Victor looked at Maya one last time. I understand your resistance, but Maya, understand this. I always get what I pay for. Always. Your cooperation makes this pleasant. Your resistance makes it unpleasant. Choose wisely. He left. Richard started to follow, then paused at the door. That text you received last night, he said quietly. The one from the supposed rescuer? I wrote it. Sent it from a burner phone to test your reaction. No one's coming, Maya. No one found your letter. You're alone. Start accepting it. The door closed. The lock clicked. Maya stood frozen, her mind reeling. The text had been from Richard? Ghost didn't exist? The hope she'd carried through the night shattered like glass. She walked to the window, pressing her forehead against the cold glass. Below, 2 security guards patrolled the fence line. Beyond them, nothing but empty road and winter-bare trees. Alone. She was alone. Maya closed her eyes, thinking about her mother, about Catherine's last words to her, spoken in the hospital the week before she died. You're stronger than you know, baby. When things get hard, you fight. You never give up. Promise me. Maya had promised. She opened her eyes, looking at her reflection in the window glass. 19 years old. Exhausted. Terrified. But not broken yet. If no one was coming, she'd have to save herself. At noon, 300 motorcycles rolled into position around Brookwood Estate like a military operation. Ghost coordinated from the command van with Agent Blake, watching feeds from 12 different cameras as the brothers established the perimeter. North side secure, Tiny's voice crackled through the radio. 47 riders in position, 50-foot spacing. East side secure, Big Mike reported from Charlotte chapter. 71 riders positioned. South side secure, Hammer called in from Raleigh. 58 in position. West side secure, Chains confirmed from Wilmington. 43 positioned, full perimeter established. Ghost marked each position on the tactical map. 300 riders forming a perfect circle around the 12-acre estate, invisible from the house but ready to lock down every exit on command. Surveillance shows 4 additional vehicles arrived this morning, Blake said, studying her monitors. 2 SUVs, 1 sedan, 1 van. Running plates now. That's more than we expected, Ghost said. How many people are we looking at inside? Unknown. Thermal imaging shows at least 9 heat signatures in the main house, but the van's blocking our view of the garage. Could be more. Ghost's jaw tightened. What about Maya? Do we have visual? Blake switched to the bedroom camera feed. Maya sat on her bed, still in pajamas, staring at nothing. She hasn't moved in 20 minutes. Just sitting there. She's in shock, Ghost said quietly. Or planning something. Let's hope it's not the latter. If she tries to run on her own, she'll get hurt. Can we get another message to her? Let her know we're here. Too risky. Richard's monitoring everything. If he realizes we've got surveillance, he might move the ceremony or relocate Maya. We hold position until Victor commits to the ceremony. Ghost hated it. Hated watching Maya sit there, believing she was alone while 300 brothers waited outside.
But Blake was right. Tactical precision over emotion. His radio crackled. "Ghost, this is Lawman. I'm at the private airfield where Victor landed. Just finished talking to the tower. His flight plan shows departure scheduled for 8 p.m. tonight." 3 hours after the ceremony, Ghost said. "That's our window. He marries her at 5, plans to leave the country with her at 8. "Exactly, which means we have to move before he gets her to that plane. Once they're airborne, diplomatic immunity complicates everything."
Blake was already on her phone, coordinating with the FBI task force. "Tactical team, revised timeline. We breach at 5:10 p.m., 10 minutes into the ceremony. That gives Victor time to produce payment and commit to the transaction, but keeps us ahead of any transportation to the airfield." Ghost watched the feed showing Victor's vehicles parked in the estate driveway. "What about his security? How many are we dealing with?" "Still assessing, but Ghost, I need to tell you something." Blake's voice went serious. "We identified one of the men who arrived with Victor. His name is Alexei Kovalenko." Ghost's memory triggered. "That's the name from Lawman's research. The Ukrainian diplomat who married Jessica Torres." "Correct. Which means Victor brought one of his previous acquisitions' husbands to this ceremony. That's not security. That's a message." "He's showing Maya what happens to the girls who marry into his network," Ghost said, cold fury building in his chest. "He's proving that resistance is futile." "That's my read. Jessica Torres said Kovalenko is brutal, connected to organized crime, and that she's terrified to testify against him. If he's here, it's to intimidate Maya into compliance." Ghost stood up, unable to sit still any longer. "How long until breach?" Blake checked her watch. 4 hours and 53 minutes. We hold until then." "And if something happens before then? If Maya's in immediate danger?" "Then we adapt." "But Ghost, we stick to the plan, unless we have no choice." 4 hours and 53 minutes. Ghost pulled out his phone, looking at the photo of Maya's letter. The desperate handwriting, the plea for angels. "We're here," he thought. "Just hold on a little longer." At 2 p.m., Elena Marquez entered Maya's room, carrying a garment bag and makeup case. The housekeeper had worked for Richard for 3 years, had been present during all 3 previous stepdaughters. She knew exactly what she was participating in. "Time to get ready," Elena said, in accented English. Her tone was neutral, professional, as if this were a normal wedding. Maya stood from the bed. "How do you do it?" "Do what?" "Watch him sell girls? Watch them disappear? How do you sleep at night?" Elena's expression didn't change. "Mr. Donovan pays me well. What happens in this house is not my concern." "It should be. You're helping him traffic human beings." "I help him run his household. What he chooses to do with his stepdaughters is between him and them." Maya stepped closer. "Caroline Brennan died of a drug overdose in Bucharest at 23. Jessica Torres is hiding in a shelter in Kiev, terrified for her life. Samantha Chen tried to get help from the U.S. Embassy twice and was turned away. You watched all of them go through this. You dressed them. You did their makeup. You helped make them look perfect for the monsters who bought them. And you did nothing." For the first time, something flickered across Elena's face. Guilt, maybe. Or just annoyance at being confronted. "What would you have me do?" Elena asked quietly. "I am an immigrant with limited options. I need this job. I need Mr. Donovan's sponsorship to stay in this country. If I speak against him, I am deported. My family in El Salvador depends on the money I send, so yes, I do what I must to survive." "By helping him destroy other people's survival?" "You do not understand what it means to have no choices." "I understand perfectly," Maya said. "I'm living it right now. But I'm not going to become someone who enables it to happen to others." Elena looked at her for a long moment.
Then she unzipped the garment bag, revealing a white dress. Simple, elegant, expensive. The kind of dress any bride would be thrilled to wear.
"Put it on," Elena said. "Victor wants you ready by 4:30.
Maya,
I'll put on the dress. But Elena, when this is over, when the truth comes out, remember that you had a choice. And you chose wrong."
Elena's hands trembled slightly as she hung the dress on the closet door.
"The ceremony begins at 5 p.m. in the main parlor. You will be escorted downstairs at 4:45. Do not be late."
She left quickly, closing the door harder than necessary. Maya walked to the dress, running her fingers over the silk fabric. It was beautiful. Perfect.
exactly what she would have chosen if this were a real wedding to someone she loved.
Instead, it was a costume for her own execution. She showered mechanically, her mind working through possibilities. The ceremony was in the main parlor, ground floor, windows on two sides, one door to the hallway. She'd been in that room before, knew the layout. If she could create enough chaos during the ceremony, if she could break away and reach a window. But the guards were armed. Richard was watching.
Victor. Maya styled her hair, applied minimal makeup, and looked at her reflection one last time.
She looked like a bride, young, beautiful, ready to begin her life. Instead, she was looking at the end of it. At 3:47 p.m., Ghost's radio crackled with Lawman's voice, urgent and tight. "Ghost, we've got a problem. I just pulled Richard's phone records from this morning. He made a call to the Charlotte Police Department at 7:15 a.m., reporting a potential stalker situation at his estate."
Ghost's blood went cold.
What kind of stalker situation? He claimed Maya's been sending threatening messages to herself from burner phones, that she's exhibiting signs of self-harm and paranoid delusions. He requested a welfare check. When? Officers are scheduled to arrive at the estate at 5 p.m., right when the ceremony starts. Blake swore. He's creating witnesses. Cops show up, see a wedding in progress, Maya in a white dress looking fine.
If she Ghost makes it harder for Richard's lawyers to claim FBI overreach.
Blake considered it. Risky, but it might work. I'll coordinate with Charlotte PD Command, make sure the responding officers are briefed. They arrive for welfare check, we breach simultaneously. Between federal agents and local police, Richard won't know which direction to look. "Do it," Ghost said. At 4:32 p.m., Maya stood in her bedroom, fully dressed, listening to footsteps in the hallway. The lock clicked.
Richard entered, wearing a tuxedo, looking every inch the proud stepfather giving away his daughter.
"You look beautiful," he said. "Catherine would be proud." "Don't you dare," Maya whispered. "Don't you dare invoke my mother." "She wanted you to be happy, Maya, to have security and a good life." "She wanted me to be free, and you killed her to make sure I wasn't." Richard's smile faltered for just a second. "Careful with accusations you can't prove." "I don't need to prove it. I know."
Because if so,
Here's your motivation for cooperation. If you behave during this ceremony, I let your biker friend live. If you don't, I make a phone call and he has an accident on the highway tonight. Your choice. Maya's world tilted. Ghost was real. The letter had been found. Someone was coming. But Richard had just weaponized that hope. "You're bluffing," she managed. "Am I?" His name is Daniel Williams, goes by Ghost, former Marine, current member of the Hells Angels Asheville chapter, lives at 847 Mountain View Road, daughter stationed in Germany. Want me to tell you more, or do we understand each other? Maya's hands were shaking. "If I cooperate, you'll leave him alone?" "You have my word. Behave during the ceremony, and your biker friend never knows I identified him." It was a lie. It had to be.
Richard would never honor that agreement, but what choice did she have? If there was even a chance Ghost was out there, even a chance he was trying to help, she couldn't be the reason he got hurt. "Fine," Maya whispered. "I'll cooperate." "Smart girl." Richard offered his arm. "Shall we?" Maya took it, her mind screaming in protest, and let him lead her downstairs toward a parlor full of monsters waiting to seal her fate. At 4:58 p.m., Ghost watched the surveillance feed as Maya descended the stairs in a white dress, her arm linked with Richard's. She looked composed, calm, nothing like the terrified girl from the rest stop. "She's complying," Blake said, surprised. "Why isn't she fighting?" Ghost studied Maya's face on the monitor, seeing something in her expression that the others missed. Resignation mixed with calculation. She was planning something, or she'd been given no choice. "Tactical teams in position?" Blake asked her radio. "Entry team ready," came the response. "Perimeter team ready." "Sniper positions ready." Blake checked her watch. "Charlotte PDETA, 2 minutes. All teams hold for my signal." Ghost watched Maya enter the parlor, watched Victor step forward to take her hand, watched Richard smile like a proud father, watched Elena stand off to the side with tears in her eyes, and he saw the Reverend pull out a marriage certificate, preparing to make this nightmare official. "Blake," Ghost said quietly, "if we wait much longer—" "We wait for the transaction," Blake interrupted. "The moment Victor produces payment, we move." Ghost's radio crackled. "This is Tiny. We've got movement on the west perimeter. Vehicle approaching fast." Blake pulled up the camera feed. A black SUV was speeding toward the estate's west gate. "That's not Charlotte PD," Ghost said. "They're coming from the north." "Then who—" The SUV crashed through the west gate, security guards scattering. It screeched to a stop in the driveway, and 4 men in tactical gear emerged, weapons drawn. "Those are Victor's reinforcements," Blake said. "He called in backup." Inside the parlor, Victor's phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression darkening. He said something to Richard, and both men's heads turned toward the windows. Maya saw her chance. While everyone's attention was diverted, she stepped backward, away from Victor, toward the parlor's side door. "She's running," Ghost said. "Blake, she's making a move." The parlor erupted in chaos. Victor shouted orders. Richard lunged for Maya. The guards at the door moved to block her escape. And Maya did something nobody expected. She screamed. Not a scream of fear, but of rage. Years of captivity, months of terror, hours of forced compliance, all compressed into one primal sound that shattered the ceremony's facade. Then she grabbed a crystal vase from the side table and threw it through the parlor window. Glass exploded outward, an alarm shrieked, and Maya ran. Ghost was moving before Blake gave the order. The second that window shattered, the second Maya's screen cut through the surveillance audio, every tactical instinct he'd honed over 3 decades kicked into overdrive. "All units, breach, now!" Blake commanded into her radio. "Repeat, breach, now! Subject is running!" Ghost was already out of the van, sprinting toward the estate's north side where Maya had broken through. Behind him, 12 FBI tactical agents poured from their vehicles, weapons ready, movements coordinated. And around the entire perimeter, 300 motorcycle engines roared to life simultaneously. The sound was deafening, purposeful, unmistakable. A wall of noise announcing that the cavalry had arrived. Maya ran across the estate lawn in her wedding dress, barefoot, glass cuts on her hands from smashing the window. She could hear Richard shouting behind her, Victor's men mobilizing, but she didn't look back. The north fence was 200 yards away, if she could reach it, if she could climb it. Then she saw them,
Motorcycles, dozens of them, positioned along the fence line at perfect intervals. Men in leather cuts dismounting, moving toward the fence, and in the center of the formation, climbing over the iron bars with the efficiency of someone who'd done it 1,000 times before, was Ghost. Maya's legs nearly gave out. He was real. He'd come. "Maya, run to me," Ghost called, his voice carrying across the lawn. "Don't stop. Don't look back. Just run." She ran harder, her dress tangling around her legs, her lungs burning. Behind her, she heard a gunshot, then another. FBI agents had engaged Victor's security team at the main house. Ghost was over the fence now, running toward her, and Maya had never been more grateful to see another human being in her life. They met in the middle of the lawn. Ghost grabbed her shoulders, his eyes scanning her for injuries. "Are you hurt? Did they hurt you?" "I'm okay," Maya gasped. "How did you—" "Richard said he sent that text. He said you were—" "He lied. I've been here since yesterday. We've all been here." Ghost turned her toward the fence, toward the wall of bikers now visible in the late afternoon light. "See them? 300 brothers. All of them here for you." Maya's vision blurred with tears. 300. The letter had worked. The impossible, desperate plea she'd written to strangers had actually worked. "Can you climb?" Ghost asked, already moving her toward the fence. "Or do you need me to carry you?" "I can climb." They reached the fence just as Richard burst through the broken parlor window, rage distorting his features. "Maya, stop! You don't understand what you're doing." Maya looked back at him. This man who'd killed her mother, who'd sold her like property, who'd spent 6 months convincing her she was alone and worthless and out of options. "I understand perfectly," she shouted back. "You're going to prison." Ghost boosted her up. Maya grabbed the iron bars, finding footholds, pulling herself up with strength she didn't know she had. Adrenaline, fear, fury, all of it combining into pure survival instinct. She cleared the top and dropped down on the other side, landing hard but staying upright. Immediately, 3 bikers surrounded her, creating a protective barrier. "You're safe now," one of them said. Big guy, gray beard, patches that read President Asheville. "Nobody's touching you. Nobody." Ghost was over the fence seconds later, landing beside her. "Tiny, get her to the command van. Agent Blake's waiting." "On it." Tiny put a hand on Maya's shoulder, gentle despite his size. "Come on, darling. Let's get you somewhere warm." Maya let him guide her toward a black van parked 50 yards down the road, but she kept looking back. Back at the estate, where FBI agents were swarming through every entrance, where Richard was being surrounded by tactical team members, where Victor's security was being disarmed and restrained. It was really happening. The rescue was real. Inside the command van, Agent Blake was coordinating the operation via 3 different radio channels simultaneously. When Maya entered, escorted by Tiny and Ghost, Blake's expression shifted from tactical command to genuine relief. "Maya Carter?" Blake asked, though she clearly already knew. "Yes. I'm Special Agent Jennifer Blake, FBI Human Trafficking Task Force. You're safe now. Do you understand? You're safe." Maya nodded, unable to speak past the tightness in her throat. Blake pulled out a blanket, wrapping it around Maya's shoulders. "We're going to need a full statement from you, but first, are you injured? Do you need medical attention?" "I'm fine. Just some cuts from the glass." "Bear!" Ghost called outside the van. "Need you." A broad-shouldered man climbed in carrying a medical kit. He moved carefully, keeping his body language non-threatening. "Hey there, I'm Bear, former Army medic. Just going to check your hands, make sure there's no glass still embedded. That okay?" Maya held out her shaking hands. Bear examined the cuts with practiced efficiency, cleaning them with antiseptic, applying butterfly bandages to the deeper ones. "You're going to be fine," he said gently. "These will heal clean. No permanent damage." Blake's radio crackled. "Suspect Richard Donovan secured. Suspect Victor Volkov secured. 4 additional suspects in custody. Estate is locked down." Blake keyed her radio. "Copy. Status on Charlotte PD?" Officers arrived on scene during the breach, currently providing perimeter support. No complications. Blake looked at Maya. "Victor Volkov is in custody. Richard Donovan is in custody. Everyone involved in this operation is being arrested as we speak. You're never going back to that house." Maya felt something break open inside her chest. 6 months of captivity. 6 months of terror. 6 months of believing she'd die alone and unmissed. And now it was over. Actually over. She started crying. Not the quiet, controlled tears she'd learned to cry silently in her locked bedroom, but the kind of sobbing that shook her entire body. Bear quietly excused himself. Ghost stayed, standing near but not crowding, letting her process. Blake pulled out her phone. "I'm calling Dr. Sarah Mitchell, our staff psychiatrist. She's going to meet us at the field office for your evaluation. But Maya, I need you to understand something important. Richard built a case claiming you're mentally unstable. He's got a paid psychiatrist who's prepared to testify that you're delusional. We're going to dismantle that completely, but you need to be prepared for his lawyers to attack your credibility." Maya wiped her eyes, forcing herself to focus. "I expected that. What do you need from me?" "The truth. Everything that happened from the moment your mother died until now. Every detail, no matter how small. We're building a case for trafficking, conspiracy, possible homicide. Your testimony is crucial." "What about the other girls? Caroline, Jessica, Samantha?" Blake's expression hardened. "We've located Jessica Torres and Samantha Chen. Both are willing to testify. Caroline Brennan died in 2013, but we're reopening the investigation into her death. Between you and the other 2 survivors, we're establishing Richard's pattern of behavior." Maya felt a surge of fierce satisfaction. "Good. He did this to at least 3 other girls before me. He can't be allowed to do it again." "He won't. I promise you that." Blake glanced at Ghost. "And we need to talk about how this investigation started. Ghost, you found Maya's letter?" "At a rest stop on I-85. She'd tied it to a balloon. The balloon got stuck. I retrieved it and read her plea for help." Blake turned to Maya. "That letter is evidence. We've got photos, chain of custody documentation, everything we need to authenticate it. But I need to ask, did anyone coerce you to write it? Did Richard know you were writing it?" "No. I wrote it on my own. It was my last option. I didn't think anyone would actually find it." Maya looked at Ghost. "But you did." "Yeah, I did. And the second I read it, I knew we had to move." Blake was typing notes rapidly. "The letter demonstrates premeditation on Richard's part. He was planning to traffic you. It demonstrates your state of mind. You were aware of the danger and seeking help. And it demonstrates that you had no other options available. That's powerful evidence." Ghost's radio crackled. Tiny's voice. "Ghost, we've got a situation at the main house. You need to see this." Ghost looked at Blake. "I'm going back in. Keep her safe." "Always." Ghost exited the van, jogging back toward the estate where FBI agents were still processing the scene. Tiny met him at the front entrance, his expression grim. "What is it?" Ghost asked. "Elena Marquez, the housekeeper. She's asking to speak with you specifically. Says she has information about Richard's previous victims." Ghost followed Tiny into the estate's kitchen, where Elena sat at the table, handcuffed, flanked by 2 FBI agents.
Her eyes were red from crying. "You wanted to talk?" Ghost said, his voice cold. He'd heard what Elena had said to Maya, how she'd enabled Richard's trafficking for years.
"I want to make a deal," Elena said quietly. "I will testify against Mr. Donovan, everything I know, in exchange for immunity."
"That's not my call. That's Agent Blake's. But what makes you think we'd deal with you? You helped him sell 3 girls."
4, Elena corrected. "There was another one, before Caroline, a girl named Amanda Price in 2009.
She was 17 when Mr. Donovan married her mother, 18 when her mother died and he became guardian, 19 when he sold her to a man from Romania. I was new then. I did not understand what was happening until it was too late." Ghost felt sick.
"Where's Amanda now?"
"I do not know. She disappeared. But I have documents. Letters she wrote to her mother before the mother died, photos of injuries, evidence that Mr. Donovan was abusive to her. I kept them hidden all these years."
"Why?"
Elena's voice broke.
"Because I was afraid. Because I needed this job. Because I told myself it was not my responsibility. But today," she looked up at Ghost, "today I watched that girl break a window and run for her life. And I realized I have been helping a monster. I want to stop."
Ghost pulled out his phone, calling Blake. "You need to hear this." 10 minutes later, Blake was in the kitchen, listening to Elena's confession with a recording device running. Ina detailed everything: Richard's patterns, his methods, his contacts in Eastern Europe, the money trails, the forged documents. She produced a flash drive she'd hidden in her quarters containing copies of financial records, emails, and correspondence with Viktor Volkov's network.
"This is enough to add RICO charges,"
Blake said, stunned. "Elena, you're looking at potential prison time for your involvement. But if everything you're giving us checks out, I can recommend significant reduction in sentencing."
"I do not care about my sentencing," Elena said. "I care about stopping him. And I care about finding Amanda Price. She deserves justice too."
Blake turned to one of her agents. "Get this flash drive to forensic analysis immediately. I want every file verified and cross-referenced with our existing evidence. And start a search for Amanda Price. If she's alive, we find her." Back at the command van, Maya sat wrapped in the blanket, watching through the window as Richard was led out of the estate in handcuffs. Victor followed, his expensive suit disheveled, his diplomatic immunity doing nothing to prevent his arrest. Richard saw the van, saw Maya watching, and even handcuffed, even surrounded by federal agents, he smiled at her. Cold, calculating, confident he'd escape consequences. Maya stared back, refusing to look away. She'd spent 6 months under his control, believing his lies about her worthlessness, her isolation, her lack of options. She'd believed him when he said no one would help her, that the system wouldn't care, that girls like her disappeared all the time, and nobody noticed. She'd been wrong about all of it. Richard's smile faltered when Ghost emerged from the estate and walked straight to the command van. When Ghost climbed inside and sat beside Maya, making it clear whose side he was on. When 300 bikers revved their engines in unison, a reminder that Richard was outnumbered in every way that mattered. "He's going to federal prison," Ghost said quietly to Maya. "For a long time. You made sure of that by having the courage to write that letter." "I didn't think anyone would find it," Maya admitted. I had to try." "And because you tried, you're sitting here free." "Victor's in custody. Richard's finished. And we're going to find every other girl he sold and make sure they get justice too." Maya looked at him. "Why did you help me? You didn't know me. The letter could have been fake. You risked everything on a stranger's word." Ghost was quiet for a moment. "My sister was taken when she was 21.
trafficked. We never found her. That was 20 years ago. I've spent every day since then looking for ways to make sure other families don't go through what mine did. Your letter, his voice roughened. Your letter gave me a chance to save someone else's sister. I wasn't going to waste it. Maya felt tears building again. I'm sorry about your sister. Me too. But because of you, 3 other girls are going to be found. Jessica, Samantha, and Amanda. They're going to get help. That matters. Blake's phone rang. She answered, listened, then turned to Maya with an expression Maya couldn't quite read. That was our forensic team. They've been going through Richard's financial records. Maya, did your mother have a life insurance policy? Yes, $50,000. Richard told me it went to pay her medical bills. Blake's jaw tightened. Your mother's medical bills were covered by her health insurance through her employer. The $50,000 from her life insurance went directly into Richard's personal account. And that's not all. Your mother had a trust set up for you. College fund, inheritance from her parents, everything. It was worth approximately $270,000. Maya's breath caught. What? Richard's been drawing from it for 6 months. There's $12,000 left. The rest he used to pay debts and fund his lifestyle. We're seizing all his accounts now, and we'll work to recover what we can. But Maya, you were never penniless. Richard lied. Your mother made sure you'd be taken care of. He stole it. Maya felt rage building, hot and fierce. He took everything. My mother, my future, my money. He took it all and tried to sell what was left. Yes, and now we're taking it back. Blake pulled up documents on her laptop. I've already contacted social services. You're 19, legally an adult. Richard had fraudulent guardianship based on claims you were incompetent. We're having that guardianship dissolved immediately. You'll have full access to whatever funds we recover, plus your mother's estate, which is rightfully yours. What about where I live? I can't go back to that house. You don't have to. We've arranged temporary housing at a safe location. Protection until the trial. After that, you can decide where you want to be. Ghost leaned forward, and you've got 300 brothers who'll make sure you stay safe. Wherever you go, whatever you need. Maya looked around the van at these strangers who'd become her rescuers. Blake, professional and fierce. Ghost, steady and protective. Bear, gentle despite his size. Tiny, commanding, but kind. An entire network of people who dropped everything to save one girl they'd never met. Thank you, she managed. I don't know how to... There aren't words. You don't need words, Ghost said. You needed angels. We showed up. That's what we do. Blake's radio crackled again. Agent Blake, we've completed the evidence sweep. You need to see what we found in Richard's office safe. Blake stood. Stay here with Ghost and Bear. I'll be right back. She exited the van, leaving Maya with the 2 bikers. An awkward silence fell. Can I ask you something? Maya said to Ghost. Anything. That text last night, the one that said help was coming? Richard told me he sent it to test me. Was that true? Ghost's expression darkened. He sent you a text? At 11:30 p.m., it said not to respond, that you'd found the letter, that help was coming. I didn't send that. I wanted to, but Blake said it was too risky with Richard monitoring your phone. Maya's hands clenched. So he was telling the truth about that part. He sent it to manipulate me. Probably to see how you'd react, to gauge whether you were still hoping for rescue. Ghost's voice went hard. He's a sadistic bastard. But it doesn't matter now. He's done. Bear spoke up. When Blake gets back, they're going to want to transport you to the field office for your formal statement.
It's going to be a long night, lots of questions. You need anything before we head out? Food? Water?
Water would be good.
Bear pulled out a bottle from a cooler, handing it to Maya. Small sips. You're probably dehydrated from the adrenaline.
Maya drank carefully, feeling the cold water settle her stomach. Through the van window, she watched FBI agents moving in coordinated patterns around the estate, processing evidence, photographing everything, building the case that would destroy Richard Donovan. Blake returned 15 minutes later, carrying a locked metal box. She set it on the van's small table and opened it. Inside were passports. 5 of them.
Amanda Price, Blake said, pulling out the first one. Caroline Brennan,
Jessica Torres, Samantha Chen, and Maya Carter.
Maya stared at her own passport, the one Richard had confiscated 6 months ago, claiming he needed it for safekeeping. Why did he have all of them? Control, Blake said. These girls couldn't travel without their passports, couldn't leave the country, couldn't prove identity easily. It's a classic trafficking tactic. Confiscate documents, eliminate mobility. She carefully bagged each passport as evidence. But we've got them now.
Which means we've got proof Richard confiscated legal documents from all 5 victims. Another charge.
How many charges is he facing total? Maya asked. Blake checked her notes. As of right now, 14 counts of human trafficking, 5 counts of conspiracy to commit kidnapping, 10 counts of fraud and embezzlement, 5 counts of confiscating legal documents, and we're building cases for 3 counts of conspiracy to commit murder related to the mother's deaths.
If everything holds, he's looking at life without parole.
Good,
Maya said simply.
Ghost's phone buzzed. He checked it, then looked at Maya. The brothers want to know if you'd be willing to meet some of them. They've been asking about you all day. Maya hesitated.
How many?
However many you're comfortable with. Could be just Tiny and a couple others. Could be all 300 if you want to thank them personally. Your call. Maya thought about it.
About 300 people who'd left their families 2 days before New Year's Eve to save a stranger. Who'd positioned themselves around an estate for hours, waiting for the signal to lock it down. Who'd created the wall of protection that made her rescue possible.
I'd like to meet them,
she said.
As many as want to meet me.
Ghost smiled. They're going to love that. Let me tell Tiny.
20 minutes later, Maya stood outside the command van, wrapped in Blake's FBI jacket over her ruined wedding dress, and watched as bikers approached in groups of 10 and 15. They came respectfully, quietly, keeping distance until Maya invited them closer. Tiny was first. He knelt down to her level despite being a foot taller.
You did real good today, darling. Takes courage to run like you did. You all did the good part, Maya said.
I wrote a letter I didn't think would work. It worked because you had the guts to try. Most people give up. You didn't. One by one, the brothers introduced themselves. Lawman, who'd run Richard's background and uncovered the pattern. Big Mike from Charlotte, who'd organized 71 riders on 12 hours' notice. Hammer from Raleigh. Chains from Wilmington. Ryder from Atlanta, who'd driven 3 hours to be part of the rescue. Some of them had daughters, some had sisters.
Some had personal experiences with trafficking that they shared quietly, explaining why they'd dropped everything to help.
My niece was taken in 2015, one biker said.
His name was Wrench, and his voice was rough with old pain.
We never found her. When Ghost called about your letter, I knew I had to be here. Had to make sure you didn't disappear like she did. Maya hugged him, this stranger who'd carried his own loss and still shown up for hers. Thank you. I'm sorry about your niece.
Me too. But you're safe. That matters. As the sun set and the December cold deepened, the brothers began departing in groups, heading back to Asheville and Charlotte and Raleigh and all the places they'd come from. But they left with promises to stay in touch, to check in, to be available if Maya ever needed anything. Ghost stayed. He'd stay until Maya was safely transported to the field office, until she'd given her statement, until she was settled in protective housing.
You don't have to,
Maya told him.
You've already done so much.
I'm seeing this through, Ghost said firmly. Your mama asked for angels. I'm making sure you've got them until you don't need them anymore. Blake approached, phone in hand.
Maya, I've got someone who wants to speak with you. She's on video call from Kiev.
Blake handed her the phone. On screen was a woman in her late 20s, dark hair, cautious eyes. The caption read, Jessica Torres.
Hi,
Maya said softly.
Hi.
Jessica's voice shook. Agent Blake told me about you, about what Richard tried to do. I'm so sorry. I should have warned someone. I should have...
You survived,
Maya interrupted.
That's what matters. You survived, and you're willing to testify. That's incredibly brave.
Jessica's eyes filled with tears.
I thought I was alone. For 6 years, I thought no one would ever believe me about what Alexei did, what Richard set up. But you're proof that I'm not crazy, that it really happened.
It really happened. To both of us. To Caroline and Samantha. And Amanda, too. But it's over now. Richard's going to prison.
Good,
Jessica whispered.
He deserves worse, but prison's a start.
They talked for 10 more minutes, trading stories, finding solidarity and shared survival. When the call ended, Maya handed the phone back to Blake, feeling something shift inside her. She wasn't alone. She'd never been alone. She just hadn't known where to find the people who'd understand. At 9:47 p.m., Maya was finally transported to the FBI field office in Charlotte for her formal statement. Ghost rode escort on his Harley, part of a convoy of federal vehicles and motorcycle protection. The statement took 4 hours. Maya detailed everything: her mother's death, Richard's increasing control, the discovery of the wire transfers, the forced engagement to Victor, the ceremony, the escape. Agent Blake and 2 other investigators took notes, recorded everything, asked clarifying questions. By the time they finished, it was nearly 2 a.m. Maya was exhausted, emotionally drained, running on nothing but adrenaline and the fierce satisfaction of knowing Richard would face every consequence she'd described. Blake arranged transportation to the safe house, a modest apartment in a secure building, temporarily furnished, stocked with basics. Ghost and Bear escorted her there, checking the security, making sure she had everything she needed. Someone will be positioned outside your door 24/7 until the trial, Ghost explained. You've got my number, Blake's number, and the emergency contact list. You need anything, anytime, you call. Maya stood in the small apartment, looking around at the simple furniture and standard decor. It wasn't home. It wasn't her mother's house with its familiar warmth and memories, but it was safe. It was hers, and nobody was selling her to anyone.
Thank you,
she told Ghost one more time.
For everything. For believing a letter from a stranger. For mobilizing 300 people. For...
Her voice broke.
For being the angel my mom sent.
Ghost's eyes were suspiciously bright. Your mom sent you, Maya. You saved yourself by having the courage to ask for help. We just showed up to back you up. He hugged her carefully, then stepped back. Get some rest. Tomorrow's going to be busy. More statements, meetings with prosecutors, probably media wanting interviews. Blake will coordinate everything. But tonight, you sleep knowing you're safe. After Ghost and Bear left, after the door was locked and the security checked, Maya stood in the bathroom looking at her reflection. Still wearing the wedding dress, now torn and stained. Still looking like a bride, except everything had changed. She carefully removed the dress, folded it, and placed it in the evidence bag Blake had provided.
It was evidence now, proof of what Richard had tried to do. Maya showered, washing away the day, the fear, the last 6 months of captivity. When she emerged, she put on clean clothes Blake had provided and climbed into bed. For the first time in 6 months, Maya fell asleep without fear, without locked doors, without Richard controlling her every move. She fell asleep, free.
And 300 miles away, Ghost Williams pulled into his driveway in Asheville, exhausted but satisfied, knowing that the girl who'd asked for angels was finally safe. 3 months passed like watching a storm clear after years of darkness. Maya woke every morning in the safe house apartment, still startled by the silence, by the absence of locks on her door, by the knowledge that nobody was monitoring her movements or controlling her phone or planning to sell her to the highest bidder. The trial began on March 15th, federal courthouse in Charlotte, packed gallery, media cameras outside. Maya sat in the witness section between Agent Blake and Ghost, who'd taken leave from his construction job to attend every day of proceedings. Richard Donovan entered the courtroom in an orange jumpsuit, handcuffed, flanked by federal marshals. His expensive suits were gone. His confident smile was gone. What remained was a man facing 14 counts of human trafficking, conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and a list of charges so extensive the judge had needed 20 minutes just to read them aloud. Richard's eyes found Maya's across the courtroom. She stared back, refusing to look away, refusing to give him the satisfaction of her fear. 6 months ago, that stare would have made her freeze. Now, it just made her angry. Viktor Volkov sat at the defense table beside his own attorney, his diplomatic status having been revoked after evidence of his trafficking network surfaced. Interpol had supplied documentation linking him to 43 missing women across 6 countries. The Ukrainian government had quietly distanced itself, declining to intervene on his behalf. The prosecution opened with Maya's testimony. She walked to the witness stand wearing a simple gray dress, her hands steady as she placed them on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. The truth was all she had left to give. "Please state your name for the record," the prosecutor said. Her name was Amanda Chen, no relation to Samantha, but the coincidence had made Maya feel like the universe was aligning in her favor. Maya Catherine Carter. Miss Carter, can you identify the man who held you captive for 6 months and attempted to sell you to a human trafficker? Maya pointed directly at Richard. Richard Donovan, my stepfather. And can you identify the man who planned to purchase you? Maya's finger moved to Viktor. Viktor Volkov. For the next 4 hours, Maya detailed everything. Her mother's death, Richard's immediate seizure of control, the isolation, the confiscated phone and passport, the discovery of wire transfer records, the forced engagement, the ceremony, the escape. Richard's attorney tried to break her testimony during cross-examination. Miss Carter, isn't it true that you were hospitalized for mental health treatment in 2018? I was hospitalized for appendicitis in 2018. I've never received mental health treatment. But Mr. Donovan has testified that you exhibited signs of severe depression and paranoid delusions after your mother's death. Mr. Donovan lied. He's been lying about me for 6 months to build a defense against exactly this situation. You claim my client confiscated your phone. Yet records show you had active phone service throughout your time in his guardianship. I had a phone he gave me. It was monitored. Every text, every call, every search was logged and reviewed. I couldn't use it to call for help without him knowing immediately. That's quite a claim. Do you have evidence? Agent Blake stood. The prosecution has phone monitoring software recovered from Mr. Donovan's computer, Your Honor. Complete logs showing every activity on Miss Carter's device from June 2019 through December 2019. The defense attorney's face went tight. Objection. That evidence wasn't disclosed during discovery. It was disclosed 2 weeks ago. Amanda Chen corrected. Defense received a full copy. The judge looked annoyed. Overruled. Continue. The defense attorney tried different angles, suggesting Maya had misunderstood the situation, suggesting the engagement was consensual, suggesting she'd been manipulated by outside forces into making false accusations. Maya answered every question calmly, factually, never wavering. Because every word was true, and truth didn't need embellishment. When she stepped down from the stand 4.5 hours later, Ghost was waiting in the hallway. He handed her a bottle of water and a granola bar. "You did perfect," he said. "Absolutely perfect. His attorney couldn't touch you." "It's not over yet. They're calling Richard's psychiatrist tomorrow." "Dr. Morton? The one who was paid 50 grand to diagnose you as delusional?" "That's the one." Ghost's expression went hard. "Blake's got that covered. Just wait." The next morning, Dr. Andrew Morton took the stand, confident and polished. He testified that he'd evaluated Maya in November 2019 and found her to be suffering from severe grief-induced psychosis, that she'd exhibited paranoid delusions about being trafficked, that her claims about Richard were fabrications created by an unstable mind. "And how many sessions did you have with Miss Carter?" Amanda Chen asked during cross-examination. "One comprehensive evaluation session." "How long was this session?" "Approximately 45 minutes. And in this 45-minute session, you determined she was suffering from psychosis severe enough to declare her legally incompetent?" "Yes, the symptoms were quite clear." "Dr. Morton, where did this evaluation take place?" "At Mr. Donovan's residence." "Was Mr. Donovan present during the evaluation?" Morton hesitated. "He was in the adjacent room, yes." "So you conducted a psychiatric evaluation of a young woman claiming abuse by her guardian, with that guardian in the next room, able to hear everything she said?" "I assured Miss Carter our conversation was confidential." "Did you explain that confidentiality doesn't apply when the person she's afraid of is listening through a wall?" Amanda's voice cut like a blade. "Did you ask her any questions about whether she felt safe? Whether she could speak freely? Whether Richard Donovan's presence affected her answers?" The evaluation was conducted according to standard procedures." "Standard procedures require a safe, private environment, Dr. Morton. You evaluated an alleged abuse victim in her abuser's home, with the abuser present. That's not standard. That's malpractice." The defense attorney objected. The judge overruled. Amanda continued. "Dr. Morton, how much was Richard Donovan paying you for this evaluation?" "I don't see how that's relevant." "Answer the question." Morton's jaw tightened. $50,000. The gallery erupted in whispers. The judge called for order. $50,000 for a 45-minute evaluation. That's quite a fee. What's your usual rate?" $200 per hour. "So, Mr. Donovan paid you approximately 250 times your normal rate to diagnose his stepdaughter as mentally incompetent, and you saw no ethical problem with that." "I conducted a thorough professional evaluation." "You conducted a paid hit job designed to discredit a trafficking victim." No further questions. Dr. Morton was dismissed, his credibility destroyed. Maya watched him leave the courtroom looking shaken and felt satisfaction settle cold in her chest. The trial continued for 6 more days. Jessica Torres testified via video link from a secure location, detailing her own experience with Richard's trafficking operation and Alexei Kovalenko's abuse. Samantha Chen flew in from Moscow under FBI protection and gave devastating testimony about Dmitry Sokolov and the network of buyers Richard had connected her to. Elena Marquez testified about all 4 previous victims: Amanda, Caroline, Jessica, and Samantha. She provided documents, emails, financial records. She cried on the stand while describing how she'd enabled the trafficking for years because she was afraid of deportation. "I am ashamed," Elena said, her voice breaking. "I am ashamed that I chose my safety over these girls' lives. I cannot undo what I have done, but I can tell the truth now." The prosecution called forensic accountants who traced Richard's theft of Maya's inheritance, his insurance fraud related to Catherine's death, his payments from Victor's network. They called FBI agents who described the rescue operation, the evidence recovered, the international trafficking connections. By day 8, Richard's defense had collapsed entirely. His attorney called no witnesses, presented no evidence, simply argued that the prosecution hadn't proven intent beyond reasonable doubt. The jury deliberated for 3 hours. Guilty on all 14 counts of human trafficking. Guilty on 5 counts of conspiracy to commit kidnapping. Guilty on 10 counts of fraud and embezzlement. Guilty on conspiracy to commit murder related to Catherine Carter's death. The judge set sentencing for 2 weeks later. Victor Volkov's trial ran simultaneously in a separate courtroom. His verdict came the same day. Guilty on 18 counts related to international human trafficking, life without possibility of parole. When the verdicts were announced, Maya sat in the gallery and felt 6 months of terror finally release its grip on her chest. Ghost sat beside her, his hand on her shoulder, steady and certain. "It's over," he said quietly. "It's really over." Maya nodded, unable to speak past the tightness in her throat. Sentencing day arrived on April 3rd. The courtroom was packed again. Victims' families, media, FBI personnel, and 3 rows of Hell's Angels in their leather cuts, present to witness justice delivered. Richard was brought in first. The judge looked at him with barely concealed disgust. "Mr. Donovan, you orchestrated a trafficking operation that destroyed at least 5 young women's lives and ended at least 2 others. You murdered your wife to gain control of her daughter. You stole hundreds of thousands of dollars from victims who trusted you. You corrupted professionals and institutions meant to protect vulnerable people. This court has rarely seen such calculated, systematic evil." Richard's expression remained neutral, but Maya saw his hands clench. "You are sentenced to life in federal prison without possibility of parole on the trafficking charges. An additional 40 years on the murder conspiracy charge. An additional 20 years on the fraud charges. These sentences will run consecutively. You will never be free again." The gavel fell. Richard was led away in handcuffs. He looked at Maya one last time as the marshals took him through the side door. Maya stared back, and this time she smiled. Victor Volkov received the same sentence in the adjacent courtroom. Life without parole, multiple consecutive sentences ensuring he'd die in prison. After the sentencing, Maya stood outside the courthouse with Agent Blake, Ghost, and a gathering of brothers who'd stayed for the verdict. "What happens now?" Maya asked Blake. "Now you rebuild your life. We've recovered $230,000 of your mother's money from Richard's accounts. The rest was spent, but the court ordered restitution from his seized assets. You'll have access to those funds within 60 days. In the meantime, witness protection can continue as long as you need it." "I don't think I need it anymore. Richard's in prison. Victor's in prison. Who's left to threaten me?" Blake smiled slightly. "Fair point. So where do you want to go?" Maya thought about it. The safe house apartment had been temporary, a holding place while justice worked through the system. But she was free now. Actually, completely free. "I want to go back to school," she said. "Finish my degree, maybe study criminal justice or social work, help other people who've been trafficked." "That's a beautiful goal," Blake said. "And speaking of trafficking survivors, I have news.
We found Amanda Price. Maya's heart jumped. She's alive? She's alive,
living in Bucharest under an assumed name. When our investigators contacted her, she broke down, said she thought everyone had forgotten about her, that nobody cared she'd disappeared. We're arranging to bring her back to the States if she wants to come home.
Does she know about Richard's arrest?
She does now. She asked if she could meet you, said she wanted to thank the girl whose letter finally stopped him.
Maya felt tears building. I'd like that. I'd like to meet all of them.
Jessica, Samantha, Amanda. We survived the same monster. We should know each other. Ghost spoke up. The club's organizing a gathering next month. Survivors, families, anyone who wants to attend. We're calling it the Angels Watch Memorial, honoring the women who didn't make it, celebrating the ones who did.
I'll be there, Maya said immediately.
The media descended, asking for statements. Maya declined most interviews, but she stood at the courthouse steps and made one brief comment that the cameras recorded.
3 months ago, I wrote a letter asking for angels because I thought I was alone. I thought nobody would care about one 19-year-old girl being sold by her stepfather. I was wrong. Special Agent Blake and the FBI cared. Ghost Williams and 300 Hell's Angels members cared. The justice system cared.
And because all those people cared, I'm standing here free instead of trafficked. So to anyone else who's trapped, who thinks nobody will help, who thinks asking for rescue is pointless, you're wrong. Ask, scream, fight, write the letter, release the balloon. Because somewhere, someone is waiting to answer. Somewhere, your angels are ready to show up. You just have to give them the chance. The footage went viral within hours. News outlets across the country ran the story. The letter, the balloon. The 300 bikers surrounding an estate. The dramatic rescue. The federal trial and conviction. Maya's phone, her own phone now, not monitored, not controlled, flooded with messages. From trafficking survivors thanking her for speaking up, from advocacy groups asking her to share her story, from journalists requesting interviews. But the message that mattered most came from a number she didn't recognize.
Hi, Maya. This is Jessica. I saw your statement on the news.
Thank you for being brave enough to fight back. Because of you, I'm finally ready to fight too. I'm testifying against Alexei next month. He's not going to hurt anyone else. Neither is Richard. We won. Maya showed the text to Ghost. He read it, then smiled. You started something, he said. You know that, right? You gave other survivors hope that fighting back actually works.
We started something, Maya corrected. I wrote a letter. You found it. Blake investigated.
300 brothers showed up. Jessica and Samantha testified. Elena provided evidence. We all did this together. True, but you took the first step. That's what made everything else possible. 1 month later, Maya stood in the Hells Angels Asheville clubhouse, surrounded by people who'd become family. The Angels Watch Memorial had drawn over 200 attendees, survivors, advocates, law enforcement, and brothers from chapters across 5 states. Jessica Torres had flown in from Kiev, Santa Chen from her new home in Seattle, where witness protection had relocated her, and Amanda Price, frail but determined, had traveled from Bucharest to meet the girl whose rescue had led to her own. They stood together, 4 survivors of Richard Donovan's trafficking operation, and shared their stories. The similarities were haunting. The isolation, the control, the stolen identities and confiscated documents, the forced marriages to men with diplomatic connections, the systemic failures that had allowed it to continue. But the differences mattered too, because Maya had written a letter, and that letter had changed everything.
I tried to tell people,
Amanda said quietly. She was 28 now, 9 years removed from her trafficking. I tried to tell my teachers, my friends, the police. Nobody believed me. Richard was so respected, so convincing. They all thought I was lying or confused. Eventually, I stopped trying. I believed silence would keep me safe, Jessica admitted. I thought if I just survived quietly, Alexei wouldn't kill me. It took seeing Maya fight back to realize silence was killing me anyway. Samantha nodded. I wrote letters to the embassy begging for help. They were sympathetic, but said without evidence they couldn't intervene. I didn't know how to get evidence when Dmitri controlled everything. But Maya, you got evidence by asking a stranger for help. That's brilliant. Maya shook her head. I got lucky. The right person found the letter at the right time. Ghost could have ignored it. He could have thought it was fake, but he didn't. Ghost, standing nearby, spoke up. Luck had nothing to do with it. You wrote a letter that was impossible to ignore. You laid out facts, context, timeline, location. You gave me everything I needed to verify your story and mobilize a response. That wasn't luck. That was smart. Tiny approached, holding a small wooden box. We made something for you girls. All 4 of you. He opened the box. Inside were 4 identical necklaces, silver chains with pendants shaped like wings. Angel's watch, Tiny explained. You're under our protection now. All of you. Forever. Anyone threatens you, anyone tries to hurt you, you call us. We come running. That's the promise. Amanda's hands shook as she accepted hers. You don't even know me. Why would you protect me? Because protecting people who need it is what we do, Tiny said simply. And you needed it 9 years ago when nobody answered. We're answering now. Better late than never. The 4 women put on their necklaces, the silver wings catching light. Maya touched hers, feeling the weight of the promise it represented. Later, after the formal presentations and speeches, Maya found herself on the clubhouse porch with Ghost, watching the sun set over the Asheville Mountains. Can I ask you something? Maya said. Anything. Your sister, the one who was trafficked 20 years ago. Did you ever find her? Ghost was quiet for a long time. No. We searched for years. Filed reports, hired investigators, worked with FBI. Nothing. She just vanished into the network. I'm sorry. Me too. But Maya, he looked at her. Saving you, Jessica, Samantha, Amanda, it doesn't replace my sister. Doesn't fix what happened to her. But it means something. Means the 300 brothers who showed up that day prevented 4 families from living the same nightmare mine did. That matters. It matters to me too, Maya said. You gave me my life back. You took your life back. We just provided backup. Maya smiled. Semantics. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sky turn orange and pink. What are you going to do now? Ghost asked. Now that the trial's over and you can go anywhere. I'm enrolling at UNC Chapel Hill for fall semester. Criminal justice major. I want to work with trafficking survivors eventually. Maybe become an advocate or join the FBI task force. Blake will be thrilled. She's been trying to recruit you for months. I know, but I need to finish school first. Get my degree. Prove to myself that I can build a normal life after everything Richard took. You'll do great. And Maya. Ghost pulled something from his pocket. A folded piece of paper, worn from handling. I kept this. Your original letter. The one I found on the balloon. I thought you might want it back. Maya took it carefully, unfolding the pages. Her own handwriting stared back at her, desperate and shaky. To whoever finds this,
My name is Maya Catherine Carter. I'm 19 years old.
She read it all the way through, remembering the terror she'd felt writing it, the hopelessness, the certainty that nobody would find it or care.
Thank you for keeping it, she said. It's evidence of where I was. Proof of how far I've come.
It's also proof that asking for help works, that one person's courage can mobilize an army. Don't ever forget that. Maya folded the letter carefully, tucking it into her pocket.
I won't.
And Ghost, when I'm working with other survivors, when I'm trying to convince them that fighting back is possible, I'm going to tell them about you. About 300 bikers who showed up for a stranger because it was the right thing to do. Ghost smiled. Tell them the truth. Tell them angels exist. They just look different than expected. 6 months after the trial, Maya walked across the stage at her college graduation, accepting her degree in criminal justice with honors. Agent Blake attended, along with Ghost, Tiny, Bear, and 50 other Hells Angels members who'd made the trip to Chapel Hill. Richard Donovan was serving his life sentence in a maximum security federal prison in Colorado. Victor Volkov was in a separate facility in Pennsylvania. Both would die behind bars. Jessica Torres had successfully testified against Alexei Kovalenko, who received 40 years for trafficking and assault. She was rebuilding her life in a new city with a new name, working as a translator and volunteering with refugee organizations. Samantha Chen had written a book about her experience, titled The Girl in the Window. It became required reading in several college courses on human trafficking. Amanda Price had returned to school to finish the nursing degree her trafficking had interrupted. She'd reconnected with her estranged family and was slowly, painfully, rebuilding trust and relationships. And Maya was standing in FBI headquarters in Charlotte, being sworn in as a civilian consultant to the Human Trafficking Task Force. Agent Blake had created a position specifically for her, working with survivors, conducting outreach, developing intervention protocols. "You ready for this?" Blake asked as they walked toward the conference room where Maya would meet her new team. "I've been ready since I wrote that letter," Maya said. "This is what I survived for. To make sure other girls don't have to." The conference room was full. Agents, advocates, survivors working as consultants. And sitting in the corner, wearing his leather cut like always, was Ghost. "What are you doing here?" Maya asked, surprised. "Blake hired me too. Consultant on motorcycle club outreach and victim identification. Turns out bikers see things law enforcement misses. She wants us working together." Maya grinned. "The Angel team reunites." Something like that. Blake called the meeting to order, outlining new protocols and ongoing investigations. Maya listened, contributed when relevant, and felt purpose settle into her bones. This was right. This was what her survival meant. Not just escaping Richard and Victor, but using that escape to help others do the same. After the meeting, Maya walked outside into Charlotte's sunshine. Spring had arrived, warm and bright. She pulled out her phone and opened the photo app, scrolling to a picture she'd taken a week ago. It was her mother's grave, fresh flowers on the headstone, and beside the flowers, a silver balloon with a white envelope attached. The envelope was empty this time. No desperate plea for help, no begging for angels. Just a note that said, "I'm okay now, Mom. The angels came." Maya closed her phone and looked up at the sky, thinking about letters and balloons, and 300 motorcycles surrounding an estate at exactly the right moment. She thought about Richard rotting in prison and Victor facing the same fate. She thought about Jessica and Samantha and Amanda, all of them surviving, all of them fighting back, all of them proving that trafficking victims weren't weak or broken or disposable. And she thought about Ghost, Tiny, Blake, Bear, and everyone else who'd shown up when it mattered, who'd believed a stranger's handwritten plea,
who dropped everything to ensure one 19-year-old girl didn't disappear into the dark. Maya had asked for angels. 300 had answered.
And now she was ready to become one herself, ready to answer the next desperate letter, the next balloon released in hope, the next girl who needed someone to believe her and fight for her and prove that rescue wasn't just possible, it was promised. Because that's what angels do. They show up, they fight back, and they make damn sure nobody gets left behind.